I have an objection. Right now, I came into the courtroom and saw Mr. Sheffield flipping through a number of his slides that featured photos I've never seen before. They featured photos that I had not been tendered into evidence, are not part of the evidence, and then I think there was a diagram that no one testified to. So having only seen 4 or 5 of them, and I get somebody writing some stuff down, maybe on use of force continuum, and then here's the different levels, because Travis testified to that. There appears to be some sort of use of force diagram that no one testified to or authenticated. There seems to be a picture of the entrance to Satilla Shores, and then there's a photograph of like the U.S. Marine or the U.S. Coast Guard symbol, which is what I quickly saw. So right now, Your Honor, I don't know what Mr. Sheffield's putting up, but I have grave concerns that he's about to show the jury a whole bunch of stuff that they have never seen and no one's authenticated or testified to in this trial at all.
These are demonstrative things, Judge. This is closing argument. We've had a lot of testimony about the Law Enforcement Training Center. That's all that is. We've had testimony about his training, and we've had testimony about use of force. These are just demonstrative. These are just demonstrative things, not in evidence. I mean, they're in evidence to the extent they've been testified about.
The only thing that caught my eye there is the argument that this is what he received
What he
as part of
testified
it, is
to.
what he testified to.
Right. Yeah, these are just demonstrative.
And there's
visuals.
nothing on those that show the Coast Guard manual or anything like that that would be, for example, I know that the state presented a few of the pages from the actual manuals themselves.
Nothing from the manual. The only thing that I have is what I've created that shows he testified about officer presence, verbal commands, control techniques, aggressive response techniques, intermediate weapons, and weapons retention.
Okay. And this, what is that? Is that something you put together, or is that actually come
Yeah,
from his records?
I've clipped it and cut it from things that I found.
Well, what's behind it is an orange thing that has physical fitness standards and search incident to arrest behind it. So, and it says objectives completed. Travis McMichael never testified to any of those things.
Testified to his training and that he did these things.
And what's the thing at the top, Your Honor? We have Maritime Law Enforcement Academy Student Profile Report. That wasn't tendered in, and then we've got that next to it.
Well,
For official use only?
yeah, I just intend to talk about the course that he took, the courses that he took that he testified to.
No, there's more to it. I mean, that says it's a student profile report. That was not testified to. That was not tendered in. Lost it. Yeah, I don't have any problem with an argument about what he testified to, but once we start getting into what the curriculum was or an individual report,
All right, how's that?
that works a lot
Okay. And I just
better.
have this.
Can you go back to
Oh, sure.
I'm just digesting.
State objects to the heading on that, since it attempts to have a photo of something that was never testified to.
What's the heading?
It has an image of some Coast Guard thing.
It's where he went to school. He testified to it. What is so objectionable about that? Mr. Rubin showed in his opening statement. Seems a little silly.
Okay. He testified to where he went to school, he testified to what he did in the training, and he testified to his rank, which I think is actually the other thing that's shown on there.
Right.
We can get back to it. Yeah, actually, that removes even that part. Okay, I don't, the objection is, I guess, granted in part. As that slide has been amended, I don't have any issue with that.
Okay.
Go ahead with that. The use of that,
This
that's
is what
part
he
of the
testified
argument?
to. Yeah, this is just
Yeah,
part of the
that's-
argument.
he's talked about.
And then there's the Satilla Shores neighborhood
Please
sign.
back up one more.
What was the right?
This is his testimony at trial.
Well, wait a second. Handwritten notes by the attorney as to his testimony at trial, we're going to show those to the jury?
Of course we are. I wrote them right in front of him as he was testifying. This isn't appropriate to get this deep into my presentation. These are the notes that I took at trial. The same way that I can show this one, Judge,
Well, those are your notes.
Yes, based on his testimony. I did it in front of the jury, just like I did this one.
They're not
I can put
going
my
out,
notes up.
They're just what you're referring to.
Yeah, I'm saying,
So-
you saw him testify.
So the unfortunate thing is when everyone's just talking as I'm working through things, I can't think it through. So what you are using the slide to show is what his testimony was at the time.
The state has chosen to type it up. They've decided to type up what was said. You heard Greg McMichael say, you heard Travis McMichael say. This is my notes as I was writing, as he was talking in front of the jury with the state present during trial. I do this because it captures what's said on the stand in a visual way and the jury can understand it. I don't see what the objection is. The state can talk about and type up, but I can't show what I wrote down during the testimony. That doesn't make any sense.
I understand now what that was. I did not, and I agree, Mr. Sheffield did write those things down on the big piece of paper. If he chooses now to show it this way, the state's okay with that.
Okay.
The problem becomes the next photo of Satilla Shores. No one testified to that photo.
Are we really objecting that Satilla Shores is a neighborhood with a neighborhood sign out front? What's so objectionable about that? It's just a chapter heading of what I'm going to be presenting.
Okay.
Judge,
And
my fear here is just that I'm going to have to object to every single slide when it comes up where no one's testified to it or it contains information no one testified to.
Well, and I think we've just seen a number of things. The state has a continuing objection then to the Satilla Shores sign. I understand that's not in evidence, but it's the sign itself. And if it's simply being used as indicated as sort of a chapter marker, then I'll permit the defense to use that. What the changes that have been made now to the slide that showed the training, what I understand now is limited to what was actually testified to.
Correct.
And it will be referred to that way as opposed to here's the manual or here's what the Coast Guard instructed him. I won't limit you on exactly how you can present that, but as long as it's not a presentation as if it was evidence separate from testimony that was provided by Mr. McMichael from the witness stand. And the use of force continuum is just what you're using to demonstrate the argument as opposed to relying on that as a training device or something that was actually presented in training.
Right.
Okay.
So Judge, I'm just asking for a little direction from the court. These are just the first couple, so if there's some photos that no one's ever testified to that are in this, I'm going to object. If there are other things, like for instance, if there's a picture of the neighborhood and somehow they've marked every time a 911 call came in, no one testified to all the 911 calls in the neighborhood, but there may be a graphic that shows all of that. If such graphic exists, I'm not saying it does, I don't know what kind of graphic Mr. Sheffield's going to be, I'm going to object. And if this happens more than twice within this PowerPoint, I'm going to ask that we stop, unfortunately, and go through every single slide, because at that point, I'm going to be up here objecting constantly to his closing because it contains things that were never testified to and no evidence was presented at trial because of it. That is my concern.
I have a slide of the neighborhood that I've created, that I've put little circles on, and I've put things on it that are representative of the testimony of Officer Rash and the GBI and going door to door and neighbors who have been complaining about things. I'm not going to say the neighbor at this address called 911 on this date or that date. It's argument. It's demonstrative of my argument. I don't see any basis for the state to object, and I don't have anything else in here that's a photograph.
I understand the issue, and we'll see where it goes.
Thank you, Judge.
No, it's good. Yeah, it's good. Okay.
Ready to
State
go?
wants to object and do it, that's fine. We'll just deal with it as it comes, I guess.